So we're gonna make this little bag. It's super cute. It holds lots of different things. You can put keys or gum or whatever you want in there. I really like it. You can make it in all different sizes, so it can be bigger, smaller, anything you want. So to start out, you just need a zipper, but the important part when buying a zipper is to realize that you need to know how long to make it. So this little tiny bag is going to use a little zipper. It's only about 7 inches, and it just makes a little one. If you wanted to make a bigger bag, I would go 14 inches, like say you're making a bag out of a fat quarter, which I've done. You're gonna need about 14 inches, it just depends. So look at your zipper, that's about, when you fold over the ends, that's about how long your bag is gonna be. So just keep that in mind when buying a zipper. So you need your zipper. You also need a piece of fabric, and the way that you're going to do this is you're going to measure the zipper to the length of fabric. So it's got to be the same length of fabric, but then when you're deciding how fat you want it to be, you just kind of roll your fabric into a little tube to see, oh yeah, that seems about right, and then you kind of fold it over, you guess, okay, so that's going to be the top, and then this is going to be like the volume of it. And it's going to be a little bit shorter, obviously, because we're going to sew in the sides. So that's just how you determine the length and the width of your fabric. So first what we're going to do is we're going to turn the zipper so that the zipper part of it is facing down. We're going to put it right on there, and we're just going to sew a straight line right across so the right side of the zipper and the right side of the fabric are together. Okay, so next what we're going to do is we're going to flip this up this way so that you have the little fold, and you're going to sew just along the top part of this. So there you have half of it. Next, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to fold it over like your right sides together and sew it onto this part of the zipper. So just fold it straight over onto the top part. Next, what you're going to want to do is flip it inside out. And unzip it. And you're going to want to sew the same thing that you did on this side onto this side with this flipped over. Okay, then zip it about halfway, maybe a little bit, yeah, about halfway. If you have a longer zipper, then you only really need to leave that much of space, but you don't really have to worry about that when it's small. Flip it back inside out, and what you're going to do, instead of folding it this way, you're going to fold it with the zipper in the middle and flatten it out into like a tube, like this. And you're going to want to sew, don't worry about back stitching because you're going to cut a little part of it off. You're going to sew just down so that you would just barely hit this zipper, just a little bit past it. So you're going to sew this way. I back stitched on that because I can't help it, I always forget. Okay, now we're going to move on to the other side, and this side's a little more tricky. What you're going to want to do, line it up. And then you're going to want to sew down, but you're going to want to keep these two pieces really close together. Not overlapping, just really close, so that you have the pieces, so when you zip it closed, then it stays closed. Okay, now what you're going to want to do is cut a little bitty. This part is kind of tricky because you want to see how high to make your little tote. So what you're going to do is you're going to kind of see how wide you want it on the bottom. And this is the same as the top. So you're going to go, yeah, that seems about right, about that width. And this height right here is going to be about half the height of your piece. So you're going to have it that height, so it's going to be about this tall and about this wide. I think that looks about good. So you take that spot and you're going to cut a little square. But the tricky part about cutting a square is you don't cut it from the edge, because that would make this really small because of the seam allowance. You have to make the square start at this seam right here that you started at. So I just kind of guesstimate on one this small. If you have a larger piece, it's kind of easier to measure it, but so that's about a square right there, and then this piece doesn't matter. And then you just measure that same on all the other 4 corners. If you're a little tiny bit off, it doesn't really make that big of a difference. It's okay. And then you can just toss those corners. Now what you're going to do is you're going to trim this part right here down so it's really short, so you don't have very much, because you don't want that to be too long. You just toss those. And then what you're going to want to do is you take the corner and you're going to open it up and flatten it out. And I'll do that a couple more times just so you can see. But once you flatten it out, then you're going to sew straight down this flattened seam. And you're going to want to keep this seam the way that the zipper is facing. So if the zipper is going this way, then the seam is going to go this way. So you do that on the other side. You open it up and flatten it out. And you sew down the seam, keeping the end where the zipper is. And you can see my squares weren't totally even. That's why it's doing this. If your squares were even, then it won't do that. See how it's kind of wonky? I'm just going to fix that up real quick. Now you know what can happen if you don't make even squares. But it's okay. It all turns out good in the end. There we go. That's much better. Last one, and then we can open it up and see what it looks like. And the reason that you leave it open is so that you can turn it without having to worry about turning it before you sew. So all your seams can be finished. So you turn it in and you make all the corners sharp. Flip them outwards. There's 2 corners. There's some. Flip them all out. Straighten out your bag. And that's how you do it. There's your little zipper bag.